I wasn't supposed to be in his world, and he wasn't supposed to be in mine. You know what I mean? Parallel maps that never touch. That's what everyone said. That's what I believed right up until the night. A man who'd never really seen women like me actually looked up and met my eyes, and the room did that quiet little tilt like fate just nudged the table. I build cities for people, not the skyline part, the bus stop part. The corners with shade and a bench that doesn't wobble the grocery within walking distance. The crosswalk that gives a grandmother a fair chance. For years, I carried no's in my pocket like spare change, too young, too black, too direct, not from the right family. And I learned to smile through it to keep my files tidy and my receipts cleaner, to speak soft when the room was loud. The night that changed everything started on the rooftop of the Helios Club. Elevator that talks glasses that sparkle like they get paid to Caldwell Pierce turning 50, jazz humming, like it knows the secret. And my best friend Zoe had put me in a violet dress that fit like it had opinions. So I walked in steady and small and told myself to show face, shake a hand, snag a mini crab cake and go home. He was there by the rail, the city laid out behind him like a bowl of stars, Sterling Hale, the man who runs boxes across America like blood through a vein, the one people describe like weather, powerful, aloof, polite in a way that keeps you at arm's length. And the rumor that passed between women like me was always the same. He doesn't date us, he doesn't hire us unless a photographer is present. He doesn't even see us. Yeah, that happened more than once, so I pivoted left. Somebody bumped my elbow, the drink did a stunt, jump onto the marble, and I muttered, "Great, that tracks," which made him smile, not at me, at gravity's hustle. Then he crossed the space with the kind of easy posture men get when the world has rarely told them no. "Rough landing," he said, and up close I saw the small human details. A pale scar along his jaw eyes with tired corners. Nothing like a magazine page, more like a person, so I said, "First time in these shoes, they only do straight lines. I mostly do curves," and he laughed short and real like his body forgot to be impressive. "I'm Sterling," he said. "Ayana," I said, "Harbor Line Design People Places, not lamps and chairs." And he said, "Logistics, not the sexy kind." And I said, "Moving 1 million packages a day is kind of hot." Then immediately wished I could edit my own mouth, and he chuckled again and looked at the city like it was a model on a table. "It looks beautiful from up here," he said. "It looks beautiful from the sidewalk too," I said, "but only if you fix the bus stops." He didn't flinch, he just nodded, and then he asked for my number with the quiet confidence of a man who expects the world to say yes, and the shock was, I did something in me unlocking like a door I hadn't noticed. The next morning I was back under the hum of our cheap office lights plant, refusing to dye mood board, drowning in sticky notes, when my assistant called out that Hale Freight just joined the Lakefront Redevelopment Forum, and Sterling was on a panel while I was presenting on transit that serves the people who actually use it. And I swear, the universe sometimes writes with a fat black marker. I ran my deck like I always do. Frequency shade sidewalks that fit strollers and wheelchairs and teenage boys pretending they're not walking together, a line that bends to touch the clinic, because health is a destination. And I told the room what I always tell them: if a city doesn't love the kid at the bus stop at 6 a.m., it doesn't love anyone. The quiet that followed was the good kind. The kind where people are counting feelings as costs and realizing they mispriced them. Then Victor Crane, Sterling's longtime partner with the wristwatch that thinks it's a PhD, leaned into the mic and said, "All very moving. Ms. Brooks, but we can't design feelings. Where's the return on investment?" And I smiled like my grandmother taught me and said, "On-time buses make on-time workers. On-time workers make warehouses run warehouses running. Make your margins stop wobbling." Feelings are the short road to your precious math, sir. And a few people let themselves laugh, and Sterling didn't rescue me or test me, he just watched to see if I could hold my lane. Afterward, he found me by the bad coffee and said he liked the line that bent for the clinic. I said bending costs money, he said. Doing the wrong thing costs more lunch. And I said, work lunch. Then we sat on 53rd in a spot with wobbly chairs and people who mind their business, and he asked the right questions, the kind that prove you actually read the report. You said you read, and I asked why his community hiring program moved like a fad, not a habit, and he didn't defend. He asked for names, numbers, timelines. We didn't flirt, we made a map. Weeks turned into overlaps. Site walks, community meetings where anger crackled like a live wire. Late nights when the city turned the color of windshield wipers, and the office felt like an extra rib. And I watched him listen when a neighbor yelled, because plans always sound like theft at first. And later he said, I used to think anger meant push harder, huh? Let's pause, and I told him what it's like to be the only black woman in a boardroom who isn't holding the catering tray. And he told me one sentence about a father who loved him in the past tense, then shut that door like he only had so much oxygen to share. The first time we felt like more than parallel lines was a nothing Tuesday. Computers humming, city breathing, our chairs too close to pretend we weren't choosing it. And when we kissed, it wasn't fireworks. It was the quiet that makes other things tell the truth. The world doesn't love quiet. It wants noise. So the noise came sideways at a fundraiser where the fig-something appetizers were trying too hard, and a woman in silver looked at us like she was editing me down to a headline and murmured, "He'll come to his senses." I've heard versions of that sentence my whole life, and it usually lands like a shrug that night. It landed like a dare, and Sterling turned with this disciplined calm and said, "If you're going to say something about the woman with me, say it to me." And the room inhaled, and she tried to laugh it off, and he said, "Try seeing not loud." Just final. Then out on the terrace, I told him he didn't have to, and he said he did not, for me, for him, so he didn't go home and pretend he didn't hear it. Then his past walked in wearing red lipstick and entitlement. Celeste, the tidy ex who smiled like we shared a joke and whispered about ecosystems and our kind. And I said my kind builds the roads your driver uses to pick you up. And later, Sterling found me by a painting of a city at dusk and said a hard thing without asking for a cookie. There was a time I would have agreed with her inside, if not out loud, that we were different, that this couldn't work. I'm ashamed of that, and I said the only thing that made sense if we were going to keep going. Then do the work. Start with your board, your VP slate, your tennis club. Don't bring me in for sunshine, change the window. The headlines came because that's what headlines do. Gold digger with a vocabulary novelty, he'll outgrow comment sections with my name inside them like a dare. And on my balcony, with a blanket that smelled like detergent. I said maybe this was a mistake, maybe the world is bigger than our patience. And he went to one knee, not a ring. Move, a human move, to meet my eyes, and asked what to do tomorrow morning to prove he meant it. And I said call a vote to expand the board and mean it, fund the bus shelters in South Shore, not a study, steel and glass. And when your friends make jokes, stop the room, not the person. And he said done, then made tea like the conversation had to live with us a while. The vote was messy. Victor called it a distraction. Shareholders want predictability. And Sterling said shareholders want profit, and so do I, and this is profitable and right. And Victor said, right isn't a metric. Smiling like centuries would always open doors for him, and Sterling looked at him like a brick wall he planned to cut a door into and said, it is, if you plan to be here in 10 years. The motion passed by one vote. A woman from Ops cried in the parking lot because she'd never seen a meeting end like that. A week later, on a stage at the Midwest Logistics Summit, a reporter asked the question everyone wanted to text. Is this relationship a mistake? And Sterling took his time and said he'd made a lot of mistakes. The biggest was thinking the world he was born into was the whole map. He didn't see me the way I deserved. That was his failure. I wasn't a distraction. I was his teacher and the love of his life. And if that cost him a club membership or a partner who never learned how to listen, he could live with that. And the applause felt like oxygen returning to a room, not a fix, a line drawn. By the lake on a windy Friday, he asked me to marry him. No quartet, no drone footage, just us at a railing city on one side, water on the other. Future somewhere in between. And he said he used to think love was a lever people used to move your decisions. Now he knew love is the thing you build decisions around. And the ring was simple and bright. And I said yes, not because life went quiet, because it didn't. Monday came with a national column side-eyeing us, two investors ghosting a venture arm. Nobody will remember the country club announcing a membership review like a polite door slam. And Sterling looked at me across the kitchen island. We built with our own stubborn hands and said we can fight from inside or build another room, and I said, both today we fight inside. If the roof won't open, we build next door, taller with better windows. The first bus shelter went up in South Shore. Steel that didn't wobble a bench at the right height. A map that told the truth. A teen flopped down pretending he didn't care, and I almost cried watching him pretend. A man walking a pit bull nodded and said, "Appreciate you." Not a speech, the kind of civic poetry you can live on. Are we a tidy ending? I don't know. Last month, someone tagged novelty on a mural near one of our sites. A week later, somebody else painted over it with the word neighbor in the same font, same size, like a correction. Victor left and will be fine because men like that bounce. Celeste posted a yacht sunset with a caption about healing the club, still hasn't called. We drive past that street with the windows down and Motown up, and don't wait for letters, we just keep moving, because the map keeps stretching if you let it. So tell me what you think. Was I right to say yes to a man who confessed to prejudice and then did the work to change, or is change like that just a polished costume? Do we owe people a path back if they name their wrong and fix their rooms? Or does justice ask us to close that door and build without them? Drop your take in the comments, argue with me and with each other, and keep it human. And if you've got a story about being unseen then seen, or about watching someone hold a door they once walked through alone, tell it, because somebody out there is still standing at a bus stop in the dark and needs to hear how you made it home.